Put that down, sir. The warning cut across the polished corridor just as Elijah Brooks turned the final brass gear inside the little girl's music box. Lily stood beside him clutching its blue ribbon, her frightened eyes fixed on his hands, while Monica Hayes reached forward as if to take it away. For clear notes rang beneath the white mall lights. The fifth never came. Across the corridor, an elderly woman dropped her shopping bag and whispered, "That melody? 20 minutes earlier, Elijah had only meant to buy Noah a replacement inhaler case before his afternoon shift." Ashford Galleria smelled of cinnamon pretzels, floor wax, and expensive perfume, a world of bright windows that made his brown work jacket look darker and more worn than it was. Noah walked at his side with a navy backpack hanging from one shoulder and Elijah's old leather toolbox held carefully against his chest. The boy's phone was recording a school assignment called People Who Fix Things, though mostly it captured shoes passing over the marble and the rhythmic click of the enormous clock above the central atrium. Near Bellwether Toys, another sound broke the mall's polished rhythm. A sharp wooden crack, followed by a child's gasp. A small music box had slipped from Lily's hands and struck the floor. Its lid sprang open. Tiny brass teeth trembled inside, but no song came. Monica, dressed in a cream blazer with a silver manager's badge, caught Lily by the shoulders before the girl could kneel. "I told you not to bring that old thing inside," she said softly enough to sound caring, though her fingers tightened around the child's cardigan. "You've made enough trouble today." Lily's lower lip shook. "Mom said it could still sing." Monica's smile remained in place for the nearby customers. "Your mother said many things, sweetheart." Elijah stopped, not because of Monica's tone alone, but because Lily bent toward the broken box with the careful panic of someone afraid a damaged object could make a person leave. He knew that fear. He had seen it in Noah after his mother died, whenever a cup broke or a bill arrived late. Elijah crouched without touching the box. "May I look?" Lily glanced at Monica, then nodded quickly. "Just don't throw it away." Monica stepped between them. "This is a private matter." "Then I'll stay where everyone can see," Elijah said. He placed his folded work cloth on the floor and waited until Lily set the box on it herself. Noah knelt nearby and opened the leather toolbox. Inside, each screwdriver sat in a narrow stitched pocket, their handles worn smooth from years of clocks, watches, and forgotten heirlooms. Elijah chose the smallest. The lid bore old scratches, one of them shaped almost like an olive branch. Around the handle, Lily's blue ribbon had been tied twice, one knot tighter than the other. "It fell once," Lily whispered. "Today?" Elijah asked. She shook her head. "A long time ago, but today it stopped forever." Monica gave a patient sigh for the gathering shoppers. "The gentleman means well, Lily, but he isn't authorized to repair merchandise here." Elijah looked at the faded wood, the softened corners, the tiny dark marks left by years of small fingers. "This didn't come from that store." Monica's eyes moved to him, then briefly to the box. It was only a fraction of a second, but something in her expression closed. "Security can decide that." Elijah did not answer. He angled the mechanism toward the overhead light and saw the main spring straining against a crooked spindle. One careless turn could snap it. He steadied the spring with his thumb, adjusted the gear by less than the width of a fingernail, and felt the mechanism settle. Behind him came the firm approach of security shoes. "Put that down, sir." Elijah kept his hand between the spring and Lily's face. "I can put down the tool," he said without looking up, "but don't pull the box from her hands." Then the gear moved. For notes rose into the corridor, delicate and clear, before the song choked on an empty space. A shopping bag struck the floor behind them. Elijah turned and saw Eleanor Whitmore standing perfectly still, one hand pressed to a small olive branch pendant at her throat. She sang the missing fifth note under her breath. And beneath Elijah's thumb, hidden beside the broken spindle, was a second metal pin that had not worn down with age. Had been cut cleanly by a tool. The cut metal pin caught the fluorescent light like a tiny blade. Elijah did not touch it again. He lifted his thumb from the spring, set the screwdriver on the folded cloth, and looked up just as Daniel Ross stepped between him and the gathering crowd. "Sir, move away from the child." "He was helping me," Lily said. "That box belongs to the store," Monica added. The mall's bright corridor seemed to narrow around them. Somewhere behind the glass storefront, a battery-powered toy train kept circling the same plastic track, its cheerful bell chiming against the hard silence. Elijah stayed on one knee, not because Daniel had ordered him lower, but because standing too quickly might frighten Lily or jostle the music box. "The tool is down," he said. "The box is still hers." Monica's professional smile sharpened at the edges. "Mr. Ross, this gentleman opened merchandise without permission and created a safety concern in front of my store." Daniel glanced at Elijah's worn jacket. The grease darkened into the seams around his cuffs. Then at the old leather toolbox beside Noah. His eyes paused there longer than they did on the cut pin. "Do you work for the mall?" "No." "Do you have authorization to perform repairs here?" "No." "Then we need to clear the area." 3 questions. 3 answers. None of them asked why Lily had been crying or why Monica had called a weathered family keepsake store merchandise. A few shoppers slowed without stopping. One woman pulled her son closer. Charles Mercer, carrying a garment bag from an upscale men's shop, frowned at the tools spread on the cloth. "This is exactly why the mall needs stricter standards," he said to no one and everyone. "Families shouldn't have to step over repair work in a shopping corridor." Noah's fingers tightened around the strap of his backpack. Daniel pointed toward a bench across the hall. "Young man, wait over there while I speak with your father." Noah looked at Elijah. Elijah saw the change before anyone else did. The shallow lift of his son's shoulders, the careful way he pressed his lips together, the small hesitation before each breath. "He stays where I can see him," Elijah said. Daniel's jaw set. "I'm not separating anyone. I'm asking him to give us space." "Dad, I'm okay," Noah whispered, though his voice had thinned. Elijah rose slowly, leaving the music box on the cloth, and crossed the few feet between them. He crouched in front of Noah, unzipped the outside pocket of the navy backpack, and took out the inhaler. The plastic canister clicked softly in his hand. "In through your nose," he said. "Slow." Noah obeyed. Elijah waited through one breath, then another, shielding the boy from the circle of staring adults with the width of his shoulders. Eleanor watched from beside her fallen shopping bag. She had not moved closer to Lily, and she had not declared Elijah innocent. But her gaze shifted when he turned away from the music box, the very object that had made her stop, and placed all his attention on his son. Monica used the pause. "You see," she said gently to Daniel, "this situation is upsetting the children. I'm only trying to keep Lily calm and protect store property." Lily shook her head. "It's not store property." Monica rested a hand on the girl's shoulder. "Sweetheart, let the adults handle this. My mom gave it to me." The words were small, but they cut cleanly through the corridor. Monica's fingers tightened for half a second before relaxing again. "Your mother left many things unresolved." Eleanor's face changed at the word mother. Not belief, not yet. Something closer to resistance against hope. She looked down at the olive branch pendant resting against her coat, then toward the same worn symbol scratched into the music box lid. Daniel cleared his throat. "Ma'am, do you have a receipt showing the box came from your store?" Monica blinked once. "It was damaged inside my location." "That wasn't my question." The toy train bell chimed again. Monica's smile remained, but the warmth had gone out of it. "Our priority should be the child's welfare, not paperwork." Charles gave a low, impatient sigh. "The man admitted he isn't authorized. Why are we still discussing this?" Elijah capped Noah's inhaler and placed it back in the backpack. He did not answer Charles. He returned to the folded cloth, but instead of picking up his tools, he stood beside Lily and left a careful distance between them. "You can ask me to leave," he said to Daniel. "You can document every tool I used. But don't take her property because I'm the easiest person here to blame." Eleanor's eyes lifted to him. The steadiness in his voice seemed to trouble her more than anger would have. She stepped forward at last. "Preserve the security footage," she said. Daniel looked at her. "Excuse me? The footage from this corridor and the store entrance. If there is a property dispute involving a child, there should be a record." Monica turned toward her with polished concern. "I appreciate your interest, ma'am, but this is a private guardianship matter." Guardianship. The word landed heavily. Lily stared at the floor. Eleanor did not reveal her name. Then facts should protect everyone involved. Daniel radioed the security office. Static whispered from his shoulder speaker, followed by a clipped response. The corridor camera had video. The store entrance had video. But the audio feed had been disabled at 9:02 that morning. Monica exhaled softly. Technical issues happen. Elijah looked at the clock above the atrium, then at Monica. "You said the box had been silent for years." Her eyes snapped to his. He had not asked how she knew, and no one had told her. Monica's eyes snapped toward Elijah, and for one brief second the professional calm slipped from her face. Then it returned. "Because Lily has lived with me for years," she said. "I know what belongs to her." Elijah did not challenge the answer. He looked down at the music box instead, at the faded ribbon, the scratched olive branch, and the tiny brass mechanism waiting beneath the half-open lid. His phone vibrated inside his coat. Once, then again. Noah glanced at him. "Is that work?" Elijah checked the screen. The message was short. "Last call. Arrive in 15 or the hotel job goes to someone else." Beneath it sat the reminder from the pharmacy that Noah's inhaler refill was ready. The pay from the hotel clock repair would cover the medicine, part of the electric bill, and perhaps enough groceries to carry them through Friday. Elijah turned the phone face down in his palm. "Mr. Brooks," Daniel said, "we need to wrap this up. Then let me secure the spring." "You've already done enough." "Not yet." The toy train circled behind the glass, its little bell chiming every 12 seconds. Warm sugar drifted from the pretzel stand, mixing with the dry metallic smell rising from the open music box. Lily stood with both hands clasped around the blue ribbon, as though it were the only part of the object no adult could take from her. "Can you make it sing again?" she asked. Elijah looked at the clock above the atrium. 14 minutes. Noah followed his eyes, then looked at the pharmacy bag visible through the window of the drugstore across the hall. He said nothing for a moment. Then he held out the old leather toolbox. "You forgot the cloth, Dad." It was not permission. It was not sacrifice spoken in an adult voice. It was simply a 10-year-old boy remembering the way his father worked. Elijah took the toolbox. "Thank you." Monica exhaled through her nose. "This is becoming unnecessary." Elijah unfolded the soft gray cloth and laid it beneath the box. Unnecessary things don't usually make children afraid to lose them. He did not say it accusingly. That made the words harder to dismiss. Lily reached into the pocket of her cardigan and produced 4 coins and a crumpled dollar bill. "This is all I have." Elijah closed her fingers around the money. "Keep it." "But you're fixing it." "That doesn't mean you owe me." Charles Mercer gave a quiet laugh from behind Daniel. "That's charming. But the man is still conducting business in the middle of a mall." Eleanor looked at the money still trapped in Lily's fist. She had watched executives donate millions beneath chandeliers and photographers' lights. Yet Elijah had turned down $5 without first asking who the child belonged to, who the older woman might be, or whether anyone important was watching. Monica saw something different. "People who work for free usually want something else," she said. Elijah lifted his eyes. "Today I want the spring not to cut her." Then he returned to the mechanism. Noah knelt beside him and opened the stitched tool pockets. Elijah selected the smallest screwdriver, then used the edge of his cloth to wipe dust from the underside of the box. A faint line appeared around the wooden base, too even to be a crack and too narrow to be decorative. He ran one fingertip along it without pressing. "There's a second panel," he murmured. Daniel leaned closer. "A compartment? Maybe. Can you open it?" "Not safely while the spring is loaded." Elijah angled the box toward the fluorescent light. The crooked spindle cast a thin shadow across the brass plate. Near one screw, hidden beneath a smear of old wax, was a stamped mark, W17. He wiped it once more. The lettering remained. "Is that a serial number?" Eleanor asked. "Could be a repair code." "From where?" "I don't know yet." Monica shifted her weight. "Old toys have random markings. It means nothing." Elijah did not answer. He loosened the damaged spring by a fraction, enough to remove the pressure without disturbing the cut pin. His hands moved slowly, not because he was uncertain, but because every motion now mattered. The phone in his coat vibrated a final time and went still. Noah heard it. His eyes dropped, but he kept holding the toolbox open. Elijah saw the disappointment and the effort his son made to hide it. For 1 second, memory rose inside him. His late wife standing at their kitchen sink, telling him that children learned more from what parents protected than from what they provided. The memory passed quietly. He tightened the safe gear, wrapped the music box in the soft cloth, and placed it back into Lily's hands. "I haven't fixed the song," he said. "I've only made sure it won't break further." Lily held it against her chest. "Will you still help?" Elijah looked at the missed job notification, then at Noah. "Yes." Monica smiled with tired pity. "You're risking a great deal for an old box." Elijah slid the rejected coins back into Lily's pocket. "No," he said. "I'm risking it for the child holding it." Eleanor's hand closed around the olive branch pendant at her throat. For the first time, she looked at Elijah not as a stranger near a familiar object, but as a man making an expensive choice with no promise of reward. Then Noah lifted the flashlight on his phone and shone it across the underside of the box. Through the narrow seam of the hidden panel, something pale reflected beneath the brass, a folded edge of paper where no paper should have been. The pale edge beneath the brass changed the room without anyone touching it. Daniel leaned closer. Monica stepped forward. Eleanor's fingers tightened around the olive branch pendant at her throat. "Do not open that," Monica said. "It may contain personal material." Elijah looked up at her. "You said it was store merchandise." "I said it was damaged inside my store." "That is not the same thing." The toy train behind the glass clicked around another turn. Its bell rang once, too bright for the silence gathering in the corridor. Elijah kept both hands visible and moved the music box no farther. The folded paper remained trapped beneath the hidden panel, no more than a thin white line under tarnished brass. Daniel glanced from the box to Monica. "Until ownership is clear, no one opens anything." "Good," Elijah said. "Then we test what we can without disturbing it." Monica gave him a restrained smile. "You have already manipulated the mechanism." "I stabilized it." "According to you." Her tone remained calm, almost sympathetic, as if she were explaining risk to someone who could not understand it. "Mr. Ross, this man has no authorization, no written consent, and no proof that he knows what he is doing." Eleanor finally spoke. "That is a fair concern." Elijah turned toward her. She did not apologize. She did not defend him. Her face held the caution of someone who had followed too many hopeful clues into disappointment. "Memory can mislead people," she said. "A familiar melody is not proof of anything." Elijah nodded once. "No, ma'am, it isn't." Monica relaxed slightly. "Then we agree. We agree it should be tested." Elijah crouched beside the cloth again but did not pick up a tool. He looked at Lily, keeping his voice low. "You said your mother used to sing with the box." Lily nodded. "Only when it got stuck." "Do you remember the part after the 4 notes?" She stared at the wooden lid. Her thumb rubbed the blue ribbon until the fabric twisted. "I think so." Monica touched Lily's shoulder. "You don't need to perform for strangers." Lily's chin lowered. Elijah did not push. "You don't have to sing," he said. "You can tap it, hum it, or say you don't remember." Lily looked at him, then at the box. She hummed for small notes, each one nearly swallowed by the hum of the mall's air vents. At the place where the 5th note should have been, she rose too high and stopped. "That's how I do it," she whispered. Elijah rested one fingernail against the side of the wooden case and tapped gently. The brass cylinder answered with a faint metallic resonance. He tapped again, then shifted his finger half an inch. The second vibration was tighter. "The missing note is lower than that," he said. "Not much. Half a step." Monica folded her arms. "Convenient." Elijah did not respond. He turned the box slightly so the overhead light fell across the broken pin. The cut was flat, bright beneath the oxidation, and too clean to be age. "The cylinder was built to strike one note here," he said. The pin was shortened after the rest of the mechanism had already worn. Daniel frowned. "You can tell that from the surface? The brass around it has darkened. The cut has not." Eleanor's eyes moved to the pin, then to Lily. "Sing it again," she said quietly. Lily hummed the 4 notes. The 5th space opened. Eleanor closed her eyes and sang the missing note. It landed exactly where Elijah had placed it. Not higher, not lower. The sound was soft, but the corridor seemed to hold it. Lily looked at her with open surprise. Noah stopped adjusting the strap of his backpack. Even Charles Mercer lowered his garment bag. Eleanor opened her eyes, but she did not move toward the child. "That proves I remember a note," she said. "Nothing more." Elijah studied her pendant. The olive branch shape was not identical to the scratch on the lid, but the curve of the stem and the 3 narrow leaves matched too closely to dismiss. He said nothing. Monica did. "Caroline used to sing it wrong, too." The words came out quickly, almost impatiently. Then her expression stilled. Daniel turned toward her. "Who is Caroline?" Monica's hand slipped from Lily's shoulder. "I meant her mother. You told us you did not know where the box came from." "I never said that. You said it was store property." "I said it was damaged in my store." The correction was careful, but too late. Eleanor's face had gone pale. Elijah looked from the cut pin to the pendant, then back to Monica. "One question," he said. No one interrupted him. He pointed to the clean metal surface where the 5th note had been silenced. "If the box has been broken for years, how did you know which song Caroline used to sing when it stopped?" Monica did not answer, and in the silence that followed, Elijah realized the first real clue was not hidden beneath the brass at all. It was the name she had tried not to say. Monica's silence lasted only 3 seconds, but it changed the weight of every eye in the corridor. Then she drew a careful breath and turned toward Daniel. "This is exactly why private family matters should not be handled in public." "You knew Caroline," Eleanor said. "I knew Lily's mother." "That was not your answer." The toy train behind the glass rounded its plastic mountain and stopped with a faint electric click. Even Charles Mercer quit shifting the garment bag against his shoulder. The air conditioner hummed above them, suddenly loud enough to hear. Monica lowered her voice. "Lily has already endured enough confusion. Opening old objects and encouraging strangers to speculate will not help her." Elijah looked at Lily. Her shoulders had drawn inward beneath her cardigan, and the blue ribbon was wound so tightly around her fingers that the tips had begun to whiten. He did not ask her another question. "She doesn't need to hear adults argue about her mother," he said. "Then stop," Monica replied. "I will when the box is safe." Daniel glanced at the pale edge of paper beneath the brass panel. "Can you open it without damaging anything?" Elijah studied the 4 screws holding the base plate. Their slots were worn unevenly, and one had been seated deeper than the others. "I can try, but not like this." "What do you need?" "A continuous recording. Clean surface. No one touches the box until I'm done." Monica's expression softened into practiced concern. "And if you destroy it? Then the recording will show exactly what I did." "That hardly repairs the damage." "No," Elijah said. "It prevents a new story from replacing the truth." Eleanor looked at him differently then, not with trust but with attention. She removed her phone from her coat and typed a short message without taking her eyes off the box. "The original footage is to be preserved," she told Daniel. "Not copied over, not summarized." Daniel hesitated. There was something in her tone that belonged in boardrooms, not shopping corridors. I'll notify the security office. Do that. Monica turned toward Eleanor. Ma'am, I understand you mean well, but this concerns a minor under my care. Then accuracy should concern you most. Elijah knelt again. Noah opened the leather toolbox and passed him the gray cloth without being asked. Elijah spread it across the marble, then arranged for small magnetic trays along its edge. What are those for? Lily whispered. So every screw has a place to go back to. Her fingers loosened slightly around the ribbon. Daniel began recording. Elijah held both hands above the box for the camera, turned his sleeves outward, and opened each pocket of the tool roll. Then he selected a driver narrow enough to fit the first screw without scraping the brass. Top left, he said. Original position. He loosened it one careful quarter turn at a time and placed it in the first tray. Top right, bottom left, bottom right. By the third screw, Monica had stopped speaking. By the fourth, Eleanor had lowered her phone and was watching his hands. Elijah lifted the plate less than an inch. The trapped paper moved with it. He stopped. Adhesion, he said. Old wax, maybe. Monica stepped closer. Then leave it. I will if it resists. Elijah warmed the tip of a thin brass spatula between his fingers, slid it beneath the paper's edge, and waited for the wax to release under gentle pressure. No force. No flourish. The folded slip came free with a dry whisper. Lily let out a breath she had been holding. Elijah did not unfold it himself. He placed it on the gray cloth and looked at Daniel. Your evidence bag. Daniel retrieved a clear preservation sleeve from his belt pouch. Elijah used clean tweezers to lift the paper by one corner and slide it inside. Only then did Daniel unfold it beneath the plastic. The receipt was yellowed. The ink faded to brown. At the top was the name Pike and Sons Clock Repair. Beneath it sat the code W17, followed by a date from 12 years earlier. Near the bottom, written by hand, were 7 words. For CW, finish the song when she comes home. No one moved. The mall clock above the atrium advanced with a heavy mechanical click. Eleanor's hand came down slowly from her pendant and rested against the glass display beside her. CW, she whispered. Caroline Whitmore. Monica recovered first. Initials are not proof. No, Elijah said, but the repair code is. He turned the clear sleeve over. A longer service number had been stamped across the back, partly hidden by an old fold. Monica stared at it and said, too quickly, that shop closed years ago. Daniel's recording phone tilted toward her. Elijah looked up. No one said the shop's name out loud. Monica's mouth tightened. I saw the letterhead, but the receipt still faced away from her, and the letterhead was hidden beneath Daniel's hand. Eleanor reached for her own phone again. This time, she did not type a message. She placed a call. Find the archived records for Pike and Sons Clock Repair, she said. I need the original service log for code W17, and I need it preserved. The person on the other end answered her by name. Yes, Mrs. Whitmore. Lily looked from Eleanor to the pendant at her throat. Elijah looked at the receipt, then at Monica, and understood that the first proof had not revealed the whole truth. It had opened a door to a record someone had believed was buried with a closed repair shop. The name Mrs. Whitmore hung in the air longer than the ringtone that followed it. No one asked who she was. No one needed to. Daniel lowered the phone he had been using to record, not because the procedure had changed, but because the corridor itself seemed to have become quieter. Even the toy train behind the display window had stopped at the end of its track, waiting for someone to press the button. Again, Eleanor listened without interrupting the person on the other end of the call. Yes, she said calmly. The service number is still legible.
17.
I also need any archived work orders attached to it. Not summaries. Originals. She ended the call and slipped her phone back into her coat without offering an explanation. Monica smiled politely. I appreciate your concern, Mrs. Whitmore, but old repair records cannot decide custody or ownership. Eleanor met her eyes.
No.
But they can decide whether someone has been telling the truth. Elijah remained where he was beside Lily. He noticed that the little girl had relaxed enough to stop twisting the blue ribbon around her fingers. Instead, she was carefully smoothing it against the wooden lid, as though afraid wrinkles might somehow hurt the music box. Noah stood nearby, his backpack hanging from one shoulder, the inhaler safely zipped inside again. He watched his father instead of the adults because that had always been how he learned what mattered. Daniel's radio crackled softly. Security office to Ross. He answered with a quiet acknowledgement. Video archives are preserved. Waiting for further instruction. Elijah looked toward the ceiling cameras, then back at the folded receipt sealed inside the evidence sleeve. He did not reach for it. Leave it where everyone can see it, he said. Daniel nodded and placed the sleeve carefully on the empty customer service counter beside them, its yellow paper visible beneath the clear plastic. No one touched it again. 5 minutes later, Eleanor's phone vibrated once. She opened an email attachment. Her expression did not change immediately. She enlarged the image with 2 fingers and silently read the faded document displayed on her screen. "It's the original service log," she said at last. Daniel stepped closer, careful not to invade her space. Elijah stayed where he was. Eleanor slowly turned the phone so everyone could see. Across the top appeared the faded letterhead, Pike & Sons Clock Repair. Below it, the service code matched the receipt exactly.
17.
Beneath the code was the customer's name, Caroline Whitmore. Lily looked at the screen without understanding why the adults had suddenly stopped breathing. The next line listed the repair request. Restore music mechanism. Preserve hidden compartment. Customer requests contents remain sealed until child is safe. No one spoke. The air conditioning hummed overhead, filling the silence with a low mechanical breath. Eleanor's thumb rested against the edge of the phone, as though she were afraid even touching the glass might erase the words. Further down the page appeared another entry dated 6 weeks later. Released to M. Hayes. Monica folded her hands together. "Yes," she said quietly. "Caroline asked me to collect it." Her answer sounded reasonable, almost compassionate. "She trusted me." Eleanor did not argue. "Did she ask you to keep it from her family?" Monica hesitated. She needed distance. "That wasn't my question." Monica looked toward Lily before answering. "This isn't the place." Elijah finally spoke. "She's right." Everyone turned toward him. "Not because the question shouldn't be answered," he continued. "Because Lily shouldn't hear adults rewriting her mother's life while she's standing between us." Monica seemed relieved for the first time in several minutes. "Exactly." Elijah looked at her steadily. "Which is why no one should answer with guesses." Eleanor studied him. There was no anger in his voice, no attempt to win the moment, only discipline. The same discipline that had made him stop turning the spring before it snapped. Noah tugged gently at Elijah's sleeve. "Dad." Elijah bent slightly. Noah pointed not at the phone, not at Monica, but at the enlarged photograph attached beneath the service log. "That lady," he whispered. "She's wearing the same necklace." Eleanor looked back at the screen. The attached photograph showed Caroline smiling beside the music box 12 years earlier. Around her neck hung a small olive branch pendant identical to the one Eleanor wore now. Monica spoke too quickly. "It was a family design." She froze almost immediately after saying it. Eleanor slowly lifted the pendant resting against her own coat. "Only 3 were ever made," she said softly. "One for me, one for Caroline." She looked at the photograph again before finishing. "And one that disappeared the day my daughter vanished." Daniel's radio crackled again, interrupting the silence. "Ross, we've reviewed the preliminary camera logs. Corridor cameras are intact, but the toy store's interior recording shows a manual interruption earlier today." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "Manual?" "Yes, sir. 3 minutes of video inside the store were disabled by a manager override." Elijah did not look at Monica. He looked instead at the music box resting safely in Lily's lap. The hidden compartment, the service log, the pendant, the interrupted recording. They no longer pointed toward a misunderstanding between strangers. They pointed toward a story someone had been carefully controlling for years. And whatever happened next could no longer be settled quietly behind the closed office door of a toy store. 10 minutes later, the center atrium of Ashford Galleria no longer sounded like a shopping mall. Conversations faded into whispers as uniformed security redirected foot traffic around the broad marble floor beneath the enormous hanging clock. Store managers stood near their entrances pretending to straighten displays while quietly watching. The customer service counter had been rolled into the open space beneath the clock, transforming an ordinary shopping corridor into something that felt almost like a public hearing. Elijah stood where Daniel asked him to stand. He did not move closer to Eleanor. He did not move farther from Lily. Noah remained beside his father, holding the old leather toolbox with both hands. The music box rested on the gray cloth exactly where Elijah had left it, the blue ribbons still tied around its handle. Daniel placed 3 items on the counter one at a time. First came the music box itself. Then the sealed repair receipt from Pike & Sons. Finally, Eleanor's phone displaying the archived service log beside the faded photograph of Caroline Whitmore wearing the olive branch pendant. No speeches. No dramatic gestures. Just objects. Monica folded her hands neatly before her. I understand why this looks concerning, she began in a steady voice. But there is an explanation for every one of these items. Daniel nodded. Go ahead. Caroline trusted me during a difficult period in her life. She asked me to protect Lily. She asked me to collect the music box. She wanted distance from her family. Several shoppers exchanged quiet glances. The explanation sounded reasonable, even compassionate. Charles Mercer crossed his arms with visible relief. Exactly what I expected, he muttered. A family disagreement turned into a public spectacle. Elijah remained silent. Eleanor remained silent. Monica continued. The interrupted camera recording was unfortunate, but unrelated. The repair receipt only proves the box existed. The service log proves Caroline voluntarily released it to me. She looked directly at Eleanor. Nothing here proves wrongdoing. For a moment, it seemed the pressure inside the atrium eased. Daniel glanced toward the security office entrance as though wondering whether the matter could now be concluded quietly. Then Elijah spoke. May I ask one question? Daniel nodded. 1. Elijah looked at Monica instead of the evidence. If Caroline trusted you with Lily, why did you tell her the music box belonged to the store? Monica answered immediately. Because she's 7. Children misunderstand ownership. Then why tell us it was merchandise? Because I was protecting her from confusion. And why tell security it had been damaged inside your store? Monica hesitated for the first time. Because that's where it happened. Elijah's voice never rose. No. That's where it fell. Silence settled again. The distinction was small but impossible to ignore. Daniel slowly looked back at the sealed receipt. Eleanor watched Monica instead. Charles shifted his weight without speaking. Elijah continued only after several quiet seconds. You changed the story 3 times. Monica straightened. I'm trying to summarize years of history in a stressful situation. I'm only asking about today. Daniel lowered his notebook. Let's stay with today's events. Monica's smile flickered. Fine. Daniel pointed toward the music box. Walk us through exactly what happened after Lily entered the store. Monica inhaled carefully. She became upset. I took the box so it wouldn't break. She pulled away. It fell. Lily looked up from behind Elijah's arm. No, her voice barely reached the front row of listeners. Daniel crouched to her eye level. You don't have to explain everything. Lily swallowed. She already had it. Monica turned immediately. Sweetheart. Daniel lifted one hand politely. Please. Lily stared at the blue ribbon wrapped around the handle. She said maybe there was something inside. Eleanor's eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly. Elijah felt Noah's small hand touch the sleeve of his jacket. Dad, Noah whispered, pointing toward the customer service counter. Elijah followed the gesture. The sealed repair receipt still lay beneath clear plastic. The service number faced upward. Beside it sat the enlarged service log on Eleanor's phone. Both carried the same code, W17. But something else now stood out. The release entry listed only one person collecting the music box. There was no witness signature, no receiving employee, no verification line. Elijah looked toward Daniel. "May I see the mall policy for surrendered property?" Daniel blinked. "Why?" "Because if the store claimed the box today," Elijah said quietly, "someone should explain why 12 years ago it left the repair shop without the procedure every business normally requires." Daniel's expression changed. He radioed the security office again. "Bring me the property handling policy for tenant stores." Monica quickly stepped forward. "That's unnecessary. We can discuss administrative paperwork privately." Eleanor spoke before anyone else could answer. No, her voice was calm enough to stop the entire atrium. Whatever happened here stopped being private the moment a child's history was rewritten. Monica lowered her eyes for only a heartbeat. Then she reached into her handbag and wrapped her fingers around her phone. She did not unlock it. She simply held it there, as if deciding whether to make one final call before the truth moved beyond anything she could still control. At that exact moment, a security technician hurried across the marble floor carrying a tablet computer. "Mr. Ross," he called. "We recovered the missing 3 minutes from the backup server. And there's audio." The security technician placed the tablet on the customer service counter without saying another word. The screen reflected the white lights of Ashford Galleria for a moment before the recovered recording filled the atrium with the ordinary sounds of a busy shopping day, children laughing, shopping bags brushing against polished floors, the distant bell of the toy train. Then the picture shifted inside Bellwether Toys. The timestamp matched the gap Daniel had been told no longer existed. 3 minutes. Exactly 3 minutes. Monica stood behind the counter with Lily beside her. The little girl held the music box against her chest while Monica knelt in front of her, smiling gently. "Let me see it," the recorded Monica said. "I just want to make sure it isn't broken." Lily hesitated. Then she handed it over. The crowd watched in complete stillness as Monica carried the box behind the sales counter instead of examining it where Lily could see. She took a slim metal letter opener from a drawer and slipped it beneath the wooden base. The video angle hid most of her hands, but the movement was unmistakable. She was trying to open the hidden compartment. The recovered audio crackled softly beneath the image. "There has to be something in here," Monica whispered, unaware the microphone above the register had captured every word. "Mom said don't," Lily answered quietly. "Your mother isn't here," Monica replied. "I'm the one taking care of you now." Nobody spoke. The only sound in the real atrium was the low hum of the ventilation system above their heads. The footage continued. The music box slipped as Lily reached for it. It struck the floor. The lid flew open. Monica immediately looked up, not at Lily, but directly toward the ceiling camera. Seconds later, the recording froze. Daniel looked at the technician. "That's where the interruption starts?" "Yes, sir." "How was it disabled?" "Manager override from the store terminal." Daniel slowly lowered the tablet. His shoulders seemed heavier than they had an hour earlier. "That wasn't a technical malfunction." "No, sir." Eleanor stepped forward for the first time since the confrontation began. She did not look at Monica. She looked at Lily. "May I?" she asked softly, holding out one hand toward the music box rather than the child herself. Lily glanced at Elijah. Elijah knelt beside her until their eyes were level. "You don't have to give anyone anything," he said gently. "Not unless you want to." Lily looked back at Eleanor, then carefully placed the wrapped music box into the older woman's waiting hands. Eleanor accepted it as though it weighed far more than polished wood and brass. She turned it over slowly. Her thumb paused against the scratched olive branch carved into the lid. Then she looked at the service log still displayed on her phone. Caroline Whitmore.
17.
Preserve hidden compartment. Child is safe. Her breathing caught. "Only my daughter carved olive branches like this," she whispered. "She did it because she said trees remember storms better than people do." Monica's composure finally cracked. I never wanted to hurt Lily. Her voice had become dry, almost brittle. Caroline disappeared. Nobody came. Someone had to raise her. Eleanor answered without anger. Then you should have protected the child. She lifted the music box slightly. Not the secret. Daniel took one slow step toward Monica. Ms. Hayes, until investigators review the guardianship records and the recovered footage, you are no longer authorized to remove Lily from this location. Monica closed her eyes. She did not argue. She did not cry. She simply lowered the phone she had been gripping so tightly that her knuckles had turned white. Charles Mercer quietly cleared his throat, then looked away, unable to meet Elijah's eyes. Around them, conversations stopped. Shopping bags no longer rustled. Even the toy train had reached the end of its track and waited in silence. Elijah walked to the counter, picked up the small screwdriver he had laid down nearly an hour earlier, and gently replaced the shortened pin with the temporary support he had fashioned from the loose gear. He wound the mechanism only one careful turn. Not yet, he murmured almost to himself. The cylinder rotated, for familiar notes floated into the still air. Then, for the first time, the repaired support carried the mechanism past the missing space. Eleanor closed her eyes before the fifth note arrived. It rang clear and steady beneath the glass ceiling. No applause followed. No one moved. The entire atrium seemed to stop breathing as the unfinished melody finally crossed the place where it had been silenced for years. Lily reached for Elijah's hand with one small finger and whispered, "It finished." Elijah smiled only with his eyes. "It started," he answered. Daniel quietly removed his security badge from the outside of his jacket and placed it on the counter beside the evidence sleeve before speaking into his radio. Request Child Protective Services. Preserve all digital records. Notify legal. This case is no longer a customer dispute. Eleanor turned toward Elijah at last. "My name is Eleanor Whitmore," she said, "and because you chose patience instead of anger, my granddaughter's history may finally be heard." Elijah lowered his gaze to Noah, who stood beside him holding the old leather toolbox exactly as he had from the beginning. Noah smiled for the first time that afternoon. Elijah rested one hand lightly on his son's shoulder, then looked back toward Lily and the music box. The truth had finally been believed. What remained was deciding what to do with the grace that truth had made possible. The crowd left more quietly than it had gathered. Shopping bags began to move again across the polished marble floor. Conversations returned in careful whispers, and the toy train inside Bellwether Toys completed another slow circle as though nothing extraordinary had happened. But something invisible had changed. Daniel Ross remained beneath the great clock long after the last curious shoppers disappeared. He removed the temporary incident report from his clipboard, crossed out the words customer disturbance, and replaced them with evidence preserved pending investigation. Before anyone asked him to, he filed a supplemental statement acknowledging that he had relied too quickly on appearances instead of verified facts. It was not a dramatic gesture. It was responsibility taking its first quiet step. Child Protective Services arrived without flashing lights or raised voices. One counselor knelt beside Lily, introduced herself, and explained every step before asking a single question. No one reached for Lily without permission. No one spoke over her. When Eleanor asked if she could sit beside her, she waited until Lily nodded first. Monica was escorted to a private office, not in handcuffs, not humiliated before the crowd, but with her access badge suspended and her guardianship records transferred for immediate review. Her tears finally came behind the closed door where they belonged, not as a performance, but as the beginning of consequences she could no longer negotiate away. Elijah watched none of it. He was kneeling beside Noah, wiping the smallest screwdriver clean before sliding it back into its stitched leather pocket. Every tool returned to the place it had occupied that morning. Every latch closed with the same quiet precision that had carried him through the entire day. Noah looked at the toolbox for a long moment. "Dad," he said softly, "everyone kept looking at your tools." Elijah smiled faintly. "Tools only matter because of what they're used to protect." Noah nodded as though he wanted to remember that sentence for the rest of his life. Eleanor approached them without an assistant, without security, and without the distance that wealth often built around people. She carried the music box in both hands. The blue ribbon had been retied exactly as Lily had tied it herself. "Mr. Brooks," she said, "I owe you more than gratitude." Elijah gently shook his head. "You don't owe me anything." "I disagree." She glanced toward Noah before continuing. "But not because you repaired a music box." She looked directly into Elijah's eyes. "You protected a little girl's dignity before you knew who she was. That cannot be purchased." She reached into her handbag and removed an envelope. Elijah did not take it. "If it's money," he said quietly, "please give it to Lily's future." Eleanor smiled for the first time that day. "It isn't." Elijah accepted the envelope only after she said that. Inside was not a check but a formal proposal from the Whitmore Family Foundation. They were restoring heirloom clocks, music boxes, and family keepsakes donated by veterans, teachers, working families, and foster children whose memories existed only inside old objects. The proposal offered Brooks Clock and Repair a fair contract chosen through professional recommendation, public rates, and complete independence. At the bottom was one handwritten sentence from Eleanor herself. "We need craftsmen who understand that memories are never merchandise." Elijah folded the letter carefully and placed it inside his worn jacket instead of his wallet. It felt less like a reward than a responsibility. A week later, the family court issued temporary protective orders while hospital records, guardianship files, and the blue identification band mentioned in Caroline's recording were formally verified. The recovered evidence confirmed what the music box had only begun to reveal. Lily was finally told, by trained counselors and in the presence of trusted adults, that her mother had not abandoned her because love had failed. Life had been interrupted, not erased. She cried quietly. Eleanor cried with her. Neither tried to hurry the other. Daniel introduced a new security policy throughout Ashford Galleria. Personal property belonging to children could no longer be removed from them without documented reason, active recording, and supervisory review. Appearance alone would never again justify suspicion. When the memo was posted, Daniel asked that Elijah's name never appear in it. "The policy isn't about who was right," Elijah told him. "It's about making sure the next child doesn't need to prove they deserve to be believed." Several months later, on a cool autumn afternoon, Elijah unlocked the door to Brooks Clock and Repair before sunrise. Noah switched on the workshop lights while the familiar scent of machine oil, cedar shelves, and polished brass filled the little room. On the highest shelf sat the repaired music box, waiting to be returned after one final conservation check. Lily visited that afternoon with Eleanor and her counselor. She wound the key herself. This time the melody rose without hesitation. "For notes." Then the fifth. Then the rest of the song complete at last. Nobody applauded. Nobody reached for a camera. Noah simply leaned against the workbench. Eleanor rested one hand over the olive branch pendant at her neck. Elijah stood beside his son with the old leather toolbox resting at his feet, no longer looking like the burden strangers had judged, but like the quiet instrument that had carried truth safely from one pair of hands to another. The workshop settled into a peaceful silence, broken only by the steady ticking of repaired clocks and the final notes of a song that had waited 12 long years to be heard. And in that gentle silence, everyone understood what the world so often forgets. Dignity never needs to raise its voice, because kindness is patient enough to become justice when the right moment finally arrives.